Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
All right, back, and I'd love to say I'm refreshed and invigorated and re-energized after a vacation. Decided to take off to Puerto Rico for 5 days. And listen, no disrespect to the folks of Puerto Rico. My friend Rafael from Puerto Rico would take great offense to this. Y'all, there's something in the water down there. I knew about Montezuma's revenge in Mexico. I did. I knew that. And I'm always pretty careful about drinking water from the tap or any of that business. The ice is what'll get you. And I learned that the hard way. I'd say about 3 of my 5 days down there were literally gut-wrenching. But I stomached through it. Gosh, the puns. And had a nice little vacation. We did an awesome rainforest hike at El Yunque. I toured Old San Juan. Did not know about the cats of Old San Juan until I did a little Googling. And oh my gosh, there are so many sweet, lovable stray cats along the streets of Old San Juan, in particular near the fortresses. Fantastic. You know me, I'm a cat guy. So that was a blast. I had a really good time with some digestive duress, if you will. But back, I don't know about reinvigorated or refreshed. I came back and had softball league meetings on Saturday and came home that afternoon and slept for like 3.5, 4 hours before even getting up to watch a little bit of Saturday Night Live and going right back to bed. I may have had a cold or maybe a 24-hour flu bug or something like that, but it's been a little bit of a trial, but here we are back at it and we're ready to go. And boy, do we have plenty to discuss. Oh my gosh. Where do I want to start? I that's the thing. So much has happened in the week that I was gone. That's what I was worried about. That I really don't know where to start. And I do have, if I don't get to it today, I do want to talk about something super, super, super local here in the city of Atlanta. Mayor Andre Dickens gave his State of the City address last week. In typical Atlanta way fashion, it was glitzy. It wasn't like what you're going to get tomorrow from President Trump before a joint session of Congress, those who show, where it's like a State of the Union and all, and formal and blah, 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 blah. No, this was like Jermaine Dupri and, lots of, celebrities and a lot of hooting and hollering. It was like a pep rally. And that's cool. There doesn't seem to be anybody lining up to run against Andre Dickens as he runs for a second term. There doesn't seem to be anybody stepping forward, and maybe that won't happen. But and there are moves on city council. My city councilman, by the way, as I left last week, announced that he's going to step down this summer and go run a school, a private school. Good for him. Amir Faroukhi's a good guy. So the local thing I really want to talk about, though, is for all of Andre Dickens' accomplishments, one of the things that a lot of local and state leaders, even conservatives, point to him and say he's really good at this is in working across the aisle with state leaders. And yet at the same time, there is a bomb brewing in the state legislature that is targeted for his city. And I'm not sure he's even aware of it. It addresses homelessness, only it really doesn't address homelessness. It addresses cities or municipalities or jurisdictions, counties, I guess, that have homeless problems. Well, how many of those can there be in the state of Georgia, right? I'm sure to some extent you have other cities that have to address homelessness at the level that Atlanta does. I'm sure Augusta, Columbus, Macon, Savannah all have homeless problems. Athens maybe to some extent. But this bomb is being built to be dropped on Atlanta by a Republican by the name of Houston Gaines. And so I definitely want to talk about that. But listen, my show airs on America One Radio 5 days a week, 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. It also airs on Progressive Voices via TuneIn. I like to have these conversations about Atlanta and Georgia politics because I think they also have ramifications on the domestic side of U.S. politics, but also can be taken into context wherever you are. That's why I focus on Atlanta's mass transit problems. I think homelessness is certainly a problem that most major cities in the U.S. have to deal with. And the way the Republicans want to deal with it is to punish the city instead of addressing the homelessness. It's par for the course. So I will get to that. I don't know if I'm going to get to it today, but I am going to get to that at some point in time this week because I think it's an important conversation. So obviously, let's start with the last day of the week last week because that was, oh boy, that was hella something, right? And all along, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had to have known this was a setup. It felt like a setup, right? First of all, how many times do world leaders sit down with the President of the United States having not signed a deal yet, having not even negotiated the fine points of the deal? Yeah, why are we sitting down and talking to the media first? Shouldn't we maybe work out these sticky issues first and then go from there? And the fact, yes, I know, the Associated Press wasn't in the room, but the Russian state media, TASS, was. The White House claims that was a mistake. Nandita Bose from Reuters is reporting that the reporter gained access, but was later removed from the Trump-Zelensky meeting. Mm-hmm. A reporter from Russia's state-owned news agency gained access to a Friday meeting in the Oval Office between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as they clashed about their different views on how to end the 3-year war. A White House official said that the White House had not permitted entry to the reporter from Russia's TASS and added that he was removed as soon as press officials were notified of his presence. A Reuters reporter saw some White House officials check reporter identities and allow the TASS reporter to walk in before the Trump-Zelensky meeting began as the White House officially handpicked journalists who could cover the Oval Office meeting. It was unclear if the TASS reporter had been allowed into the Oval Office through a mistake by the White House officials or whether there was a conflict between the press office's plans and the access decisions made by other White House officials. The White House did not respond to questions posed by Reuters about how the TASS reporter gained entry to the Oval Office. Their statement was, TASS was not on the approved list of media for today's pool. As soon as it came to the attention of press office staff that he was in the Oval Office, he was escorted out by the press secretary. The U.S. Secret Service did not immediately respond to comment on the matter. TASS did not respond to a request for comment. The TASS journalist, Dmitry Kirsanov, declined a request for comment. No comment from the Kremlin as well. So my point in all that being, whether it was a air quote mistake that TASS was in there to begin with or not, that show was all for an audience of one. The Russian assets, the two dudes of the three who were wearing makeup in that meeting. President Donald John Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance. I mean, how do you nitpick about this anymore? The Russian assets in that meeting were giving a command performance to Vladimir Putin. And I want to pick up on something that hasn't actually gotten a lot of airtime, but this part of the conversation to me is just, it's delicious with irony. Take a listen.
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal? That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world.
Right.
And I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred.
Well, he did invade his country now twice and broken several ceasefires and keeps killing his citizens.
And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either.
Zelensky.
So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world.
Yeah.
I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough.
Oh, yeah, so tough.
But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes.
I can't keep up with the Republican mindset. Either Joe Biden is weak and feckless, or he, as J.D. Vance would come in and say, would thump his chest and get nothing done. Which is it? I mean, here's the thing that I think Republicans and MAGAs seem to lose touch on. they're the first to say, well, we should just drop nukes on Gaza, or we should just turn it into glass. That's always remember that was the big thing after 9/11. Just turn the Middle East into glass. But that doesn't work, right? And that's what dear leaders here trying to tell you right now. Yeah, you got to work the diplomacy thing. And that's all fine and well, except that the way Donald Trump and J.D. Vance speak to Volodymyr Zelensky, they would never speak to Vladimir Putin that way publicly or privately. That's the problem. If you're going to speak that way to one of them, then you speak that way to both of them. If you believe you have the cards or you can make this happen, that you have to be the grown-up in the room to pull the two kids who are fighting together, wrangling by the wrists and dragging them together to make them get along. Or you're going to play the soft-touch diplomatic thing. Because here's what happened. That bully pulpit bullshit you tried on Friday got you no damn deal. J.D. Vance.
So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. Oh, yeah. That's what President Trump is doing.
Listen, diplomacy is fantastic, no doubt about it. You would much prefer it. But here's the problem. The United States didn't force Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. Not in 2014, not in 2021 or 2022. No one forced Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. Conversations were being had to avoid that invasion. He seems to forget that. It wasn't all that long. We're all alive. Those of us who could fog a mirror back then, could draw a pulse. We remember that there were conversations leading up to the invasion, before the invasion, to try and curtail Vladimir Putin's appetite for invading Ukraine. And what Vladimir wanted then was untenable now. By the way, I have this scoop from, of all freaking places, Fox News, Elizabeth Elkind, Morgan Phillips reporting that there are Republicans, Vice President Vance, who are still pro-Ukraine. Several House Republicans who support Ukraine were left alarmed after an explosive Oval Office meeting ended with Kiev's leader being booted from the White House. Yeah, that's right. For those who didn't keep up with that, not only did the meeting end, Volodymyr Zelensky was kicked out of the White House. They wouldn't do that to Vladimir Putin either. The U.S. is now on the wrong side of this war against freedom, Representative Don Bacon from Nebraska told Fox News Digital. Bacon compared President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to Democrats during the Cold War, a time when Republicans were the significantly more hawkish party on Russia. Trump and Vance sound like the Democrats from the 1970s and 1980s. Role reversals. I'm still with Reagan, Bacon said. Another GOP lawmaker granted anonymity to speak freely, placed blame on both sides, calling the meeting a missed opportunity for both Ukraine and the United States, and a big win for Vladimir Putin. And listen, can I just tell you, one of the things that, leading up to this brief little summit and the terms of the deal that were being had, one of the things that I was sort of watching from afar, again, while on vacation, I was like, oh, okay, so in order for us to continue giving aid to Ukraine, they're going to sell us mineral rights. Okay, ain't crazy about that. Not really, because what conditions do we give other allies that we donate billions every year to? I mean, I'm thinking of Israel for sure. What do we get back? Do we get mineral rights from Israel? You know, I just, like, why is this one situation a situation where Ukraine, who's going to need lots of help rebuilding, lots of capital rebuilding, money, why do they have to cough up things that are of value to them that they can use to get that cash to rebuild with? Why do they have to give it up for us to continue helping them? Mr. Art of the Deal was about to drag Ukraine into a deal that they were going to renege on. Not Ukraine, us. I say us. I mean Trump, Vance, and Vladimir Putin. They were going to renege on. And here's how you know this. Between 2014 and 2022, Ukraine had held like close to 200 conversations with Russia, reaching 20 ceasefire agreements, y'all. Russia violated all of those. That led to the invasion on February 24th. My God, it's been 3 years. 2022. These two advocating for more diplomacy, more negotiations, seem to be pretty uninformed, misled Russian assets. Because you'd think they'd know that. Well, Volodymyr Zelensky knows that. He's been part and parcel to all those conversations, negotiated all those ceasefires, and seen them all fall by the wayside. So why would Volodymyr Zelensky give up anything of vital importance, of value from his country to reach another ceasefire with a country that has clearly shown no interest in adhering to the ceasefire? And then he coughs up the mineral rights, and you're still going to have this political nonsense here in Washington where Trump, Vance, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Mike Johnson, et al., all hand-wringing about the cost, and we can't afford this. It's McConnell, as long as he's still there. And then Zelensky's coughed up his mineral rights. And who's he gonna stand up to then? He's already facing the third or fourth largest military on the planet. He's going to take on the largest now. Yeah, no, Zelensky dodged not a bullet, but figuratively a bad deal. It was going to be a bad deal. He knew it was a bad deal. He had questions, and instead of having those questions hashed out privately behind closed doors, he walked into what he thought was a setup, and the setup went wrong for those who set up the setup. You've heard the exchange. I don't need to, again, give you another show of the audio of that exchange. I mean, I'll come back and we'll dip into bits and pieces of it, some that you haven't heard again, because I think it's important to focus on some of the stuff that we didn't hear. But the takeaway is that we just saw, that was the seminal moment where we just saw the United States pivot from being the global leader to taking a back seat to Vladimir Putin. We have decided NATO is not that important to us. Our global standing not that important to us. We want to take a back seat, and this is how it happens. And listen, the real big winners in all of this, honestly, China. As we step off the stage, the global dais, with our withdrawing money from USAID, there are going to be needs that have to be met still in a lot of third world countries. And the next biggest pocketbook is strapped to Xi Jinping. All right, going to take a quick break. It's The Ron Show, America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn, or thank you, wherever you podcast for listening. At Ron Show ATL, Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, at Ron Show ATL. This to me was like where J.D. Vance should have been the most embarrassed about being so ill-prepared for this conversation and international diplomacy. Volodymyr Zelensky giving it to him.
He occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2015.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it.
Okay, this is it.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr.
are
President,
not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
I'm sorry, old smoke guys. Tell me, who set this up? Who's hosting this? Whose, executive mansion is this happening in? You guys set this up. You're just mad that it's being turned on you. Why didn't you have this conversation behind closed doors instead of parading Zelensky out? Even if I thought for half a second, this is them showing off that they've made a deal. Nope, you guys didn't even have the sense to make the deal first. But again, this was never about making the deal. I have to remind myself and all of us this. This was about showing Vladimir Putin whose camp they're in. And they didn't just show Putin, they showed the rest of the world. Europe is reacting. America's reacting as well. Things are going to get a lot weirder in the next 3.5 years. Back after this, The Ron Show, America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn, or wherever you podcast.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
I have conservatives who listen to this show. In fact, I know from some friends of mine who listen while at their jobs that will have coworkers kind of listening alongside or behind their desk or whatever and just eye rolling. So I know I have conservatives who listen, and they're probably just going absolutely bonkers. How dare that guy, who is he to say that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, our president, our vice president, how dare he say that they're Russian assets? How can you not see it? How do you not see that we have completely flipped sides in this war? That we are firmly now in the camp of Russia? That we would rather aid an end to the war where Russia gets everything, makes no concessions whatsoever, while we have to ask Ukraine to cough up mineral rights and then negotiate a treaty where Ukraine loses all of the land that they've lost in this war, all of the other mineral rights that they've lost under that land. They'll receive no financial contribution from Russia for the damage done. How do you not see it as us just completely capitulating to Russia and doing his bidding in this feckless, ridiculous circus sideshow bullshit of a press conference Friday? How do you not see this as us just doing everything to Vladimir Putin's liking? Oh, but wait, there's more.
Some breaking news this afternoon. The New York Times is reporting the U.S. Cyber Command has been ordered to stop offensive operations against Russia. I'm Jordan Smith. This was ordered by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, according to one current and two former officials who were briefed on these secret instructions. We're learning that these instructions were issued before Friday's contentious conversation in the Oval Office between President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, but they have yet to be publicly explained. The New York Times again reporting that this move is a part of a bigger effort to bring Russian President Vladimir Putin into a conversation about the war in Ukraine and perhaps a new relationship with the United States. There's still no word on how long that halt could last.
So why would we capitulate before we negotiate? See, it's different set of standards. It's so obvious that the Russian assets that are now leading our government have a softer set of hands for Vladimir Putin than they do for Volodymyr Zelensky. How many of you remember this 1987 miniseries that aired on ABC, Amerika, with a K instead of a C? It was a bloodless takeover of the United States, essentially from within, and the miniseries was set 10 years after the Soviet takeover of the United States. And we had a feckless, weak-spined president who caved and capitulated, and next thing you know, 10 years later, we the people wake up under Soviet rule. It was not a very good miniseries, if I'm being honest with you. I remember watching it. I was fascinated I was like 13 years old. I was fascinated by the Soviet Union at the time because we just didn't know much about it, but we knew that we were adversarial. We were going through the whole process where, like, Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev were becoming friendly-esque, so to speak, and the Rocky. Remember the Rocky movie, Rocky IV, where there was just so much interest in the Soviet Union, and of course Hollywood just did a terrible job trying to portray it. But anyway, not a miniseries. I would say, oh, you should go back and watch this. I don't know that there's much to learn from it, but damn if this doesn't feel like a similar scenario to what we're sleepwalking ourselves into right now. Where, again, the President of the United States, the Vice President, I've called him the Manchurian candidate, but maybe that's Elon Musk. I don't know. Elon seems to have more interest in aiding China through his wallet, of course, than us. He wants to dismantle our government and, of course, win contracts at the same time. Starlink getting that FAA cash, baby. But how do you not see this? I'm asking anyone who is conservative, who steadfastly believes that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Doge, et al. Are working for the American people when they've yet to do a damn thing about grocery prices. They've yet to do a damn thing to boost job creation. They're talking tariffs, so that's actually going to do the opposite of lowering prices, dealing with inflation. Have any of them said word one about reinvigorating the housing market? Anyone? They've, of course, done all they're going to do, and I'm sure have more planned to be draconian at the U.S. southern border. Again, a Band-Aid for a gaping wound. That doesn't solve anything. Doesn't deal with the root causation of the sort of migration necessary due to our involvement, directly and indirectly, global warming, climate change, in Central and South America. Are they doing anything for we the people yet? I've seen absolutely nothing. Hell, you even have, this is a great example, you even have conservatives who can't even really justify the southern border stuff. Well, listen to this. I got this from John King, CNN, on Instagram the other day. I just thought this was kind of interesting.
So, forgive the shameless pun, but my bison friend here, his name is Trouble. And a lot of Trump voters we're speaking to here in Colorado say, yes, they're actually pretty happy that Donald Trump is causing a lot of trouble, a lot of uproar in Washington. But it's been a fascinating visit here because all of them also raise some concerns, some red flags about what they're seeing.
I really don't like him as a person. I think he's arrogant, kind of a jerk, but obviously he's a good businessman. I think maybe he's going a little bit overboard right now.
Oh.
In what way?
I'm not sure he thought through the process. I mean, it's just kind of like, well, let's just get it over with and dump everybody. And, you've got all these federal people that now don't have a job, so our unemployment rate's obviously going to go up. Where are they going to get their money?
Yeah.
Unless they've saved it. Or are they going to go on welfare? Now, I know a lot of these people don't do a freaking thing. They sit around and waste our time. So, in one sense, hopefully it'll work and it's a good thing. In the next sense, it might blow up in his face.
What would you tell him if he called you up and said, well, okay, you think I'm not doing this exactly right? What should I do?
If you're going to open your mouth, you got to be able to back it up. And that's the problem. He's doing all this stuff, and I don't know if he understands the ramifications of what he's doing.
A lot of people here don't like the tone when it comes to immigration. Yes, they say they want a secure border. Yes, they want a legal system of visas to let people into the country legally. But there are also a lot of undocumented Latinos working the farms and the meatpacking industry here. And every Trump voter we've spoken to said, they're our friends. They're our neighbors. They're hardworking people.
Imagine
they
that.
Contribute to the economy.
Probably half of my business is Hispanic. They're the ones that work hard and they spend a lot of money in the community.
But if you had a do-over tomorrow and you had to pick again between Trump and Harris, what would you do?
I would still do Trump.
You can't make this up, y'all. David Hayes, by the way, it was the, rather large, cattle rancher or whatever the hell he is in Colorado. You can't make this stuff up. Here's the problem, David. It sounds to me like half your business is Hispanic, and that's going away. You think those folks are hard workers and your friends, and yet ICE is going to deport them. You voted for that. You, from what I understand, John King said, want a pathway for folks to come here legally. Well, the problem is because of conservative politicizing of immigration in this country, our immigration system isn't set up, isn't staffed, isn't able to function at reduced capacity to do exactly what it is you say as a conservative you'd like our immigration system to do. If only we had had a bipartisan bill just this close to being passed and signed into law nearly a year ago. Except the man that he wound up voting for chimed in and said, no, don't pass that. I need that as a campaign issue. And so because he needed that as a campaign issue, the pain persists. I believe it was in 1959, maybe 1958, where Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev said, "We do not have to invade the United States. We will destroy you from within." It was the premise of that awful, I think in retrospect we can call it that, awful miniseries in on ABC television. It was called Amerika. It was actually identified, if you ever watch that FX series, The Americans, that followed Soviet spies who were embedded in the United States to look like American citizens and paired together to have a family, raise their kids. Fascinating series. I think it was like 3 seasons long. Really good series. If you haven't watched that yet, go back and watch it. It was the premise of that, too, because you could see some episodes of The Americans where they were working with civil rights activists, at least this is the premise anyway, to push the United States to take a stronger stand against apartheid in South Africa. Where's Elon Musk from again? Nikita Khrushchev knew it. He knew it. And do you not think that that mindset carried further through the Kremlin into the mind of a Vladimir Putin of the Kremlin, from the Kremlin, now leader of the nation that remains from the Soviet Union, his beloved Russia? Don't have to invade the United States. They can destroy us from within. Which takes me right back to not my belief, it's not just a belief to me, it's rock-ribbed fact. I can feel that water is wet, that the sun is warm. The Donald Trump administration, Donald Trump himself, they're Russian assets. Lee McGowan, a.k.a. Politics Girl.
I am sure by now you have seen that hideous display in the Oval Office, where the American president and vice president attempted to humiliate and demean the Ukrainian president in front of the world to please Russia. It was a disgusting and shameful display of misplaced bravado and clearly a planned performance to prove to all of us that the teams have changed. President Zelensky, an unmitigated hero whose country was invaded by a murderous dictator, whose people have been killed in a genocide, whose children have been stolen, who has fought off relentless, unprovoked attacks on behalf of the future of his nation and the dream of democracy as our ally for the past 3 years, could barely get a word in as the two men who have supported his enemy, voted against his aid, demeaned his leadership, berated him like he was their ungrateful child, punching down like disgusting bullies while the entire thing was live streamed to Moscow through the Russian television crew they had invited into the White House. Watching it, I was so ashamed to be an American. But now, with the perspective of a couple of days, I find myself taken with a different emotion. Fury. And I know I'm not alone in my outrage. How dare these small-minded, petty tyrants behave like this in my country's name? How dare they attempt to rewrite the world order without our support for their own benefit? This criminal president and his pathetic second do not speak for me. They don't speak for my family, for my friends, for the American values of freedom and liberty and justice. If it is not wildly obvious at this point, let us be crystal clear. The Russia thing was never a hoax.
Bingo.
Our leaders are deeply compromised by a hostile foreign nation. Donald Trump has sold out every American's future, the rule of law, Western-style democracy, and the world order for his own profit and power, and the Republican Party has allowed it. What did the America First people get out of that interaction? A peace deal?
Exactly.
No.
Nope.
A ceasefire?
Nope.
No. A cache of minerals they really shouldn't have been asking for? Not even that.
Thank you.
Art of the deal got nothing but a spotlight on his treason. All that press conference showed the world was that the controlling interest of the American government is now actively aligned with our longest standing enemy.
Yep.
And our time as leader of the free world is over, and we are now a pariah on the world stage. So congratulations, MAGA. America is the bad guy now. 80 years of trust bought and paid for with the blood and lives of hundreds of millions of people was undone in a matter of hours. And it will never be okay with me.
And by the way, where are the stiff-spined, rock-jawed Republicans who are pissed about this as well? Outside of Representative Don Bacon from Nebraska. Where are you, man? Lindsey Graham, a pillar of strength. Profiling courage. Lindsey Graham, his flip-flop kills me. Here's Ladybug Linz next to Volodymyr Zelensky.
I want to tell you and your people, you're the ally I've been hoping for all my life. Not one American has died defending Ukraine. You've taken our weapons and you've kicked their ass. And I'm very proud to have you as our ally.
And then after Friday's debacle,
What do I think? Complete, utter disaster. Somebody asked me, am I embarrassed about Trump? I have never been more proud of the president. I was very proud of J.D. Vance, standing up for our country. We want to be helpful. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again. I think most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with.
well, we got to stop talking about it as if it's business, first of all. Second of all, a recent poll showed that 52% of the nation actually do support Ukraine. Only 4% surveyed said that they are backing Russia in the war. 52% versus 4%. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and triangulate and tell you that 52% is overwhelming, but it is, last I checked, still a majority of the United States. And that is despite years of propaganda from the Marjorie Taylor Greene types, the Mike Johnson types, the Lindsey Grahams, about the money that we have sent, the old military equipment that we have sent to Ukraine to help them fend off the invasion of Russia at the hands of Vladimir Putin.
The way he handled the meeting,
Wasn't his meeting?
the way he confronted the president,
Those lies?
was just over the top. He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change.
By the way, Volodymyr Zelensky was actually pretty kind in response to Lindsey Graham's rhetoric. He invited Lindsey to come become a citizen. He would help him, he said, become a citizen of Ukraine. And then what Lindsey Graham's opinion of Volodymyr Zelensky as the leader of Ukraine would actually have some weight. That's right. Zelensky says, come be a citizen of Ukraine. I'll help you do it. And then you can have some input on who runs the country. Love that. Back after this, the Ron Show, America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Final few moments of today's Ron Show. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate that. And I know you've dealt with a diatribe of this stuff over the weekend already. So I apologize if it's a rehash. And I'm trying not to just give you all the audio from the press conference, because God knows we've seen plenty of it. I do have to tell you, though, the most delicious part for me was, hillbilly elegy guy giving us this.
Have you said thank you once this
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Okay, first of all, Smokey Eyes, let's point out that you don't vote for Ukraine aid. You have a voting record on this, my man, as a senator from the state of Ohio, okay? He doesn't owe you a debt of gratitude for a damn thing. And this deal that you're boasting about, well, obviously, it wasn't all that serious of a deal to begin with because, first of all, you didn't do this behind closed doors and negotiate the terms out to where you could both come out, all three of you come out and be like, man, this was tough. It was a tough day of negotiating, but we're glad we finally hammered this out. You didn't even do that. No, you set up this dog and pony show bullshit to show Putin who you were going to be tougher on. Certainly not him. What does Vladimir Zelensky owe you a thanks for at all, J.D. Vance? Name it. What? Nothing. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and this deal that they're talking about where Ukraine capitulates, where they cough up land, they cough up mineral rights, they accept that Russia has taken Crimea and all the other lands on the Eastern Front, get not one dime for all the damage that Russia has done. Oh, thank you for negotiating that deal. Could have done that my damn self. And then can we just talk about what I think was the most important question to be asked about Russia and pulling out of ceasefires before, and Donald Trump's unhinged answer, his unhinged response. J.D. Vance, by the way, having to transcribe the English-speaking foreign reporter for Donald Trump so that he can hear, talking to Grandpa's good here, J.D. And then we have to talk about obvious mental decline because the response from Donald Trump was senile.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me.
No, Donald, they don't. You're their asset. How can they respect you when they're using you? We can have a conversation about Obama blinking when he drew a line in the sand and Putin walked across it. But Biden put skin in the game. Not our skin, but militarily speaking, monetarily speaking, he let Ukraine know, we've got your back. And by the way, the Russian military has lost at minimum 120 to 150,000 lives in this war. Okay, let me get back to Grandpa going full unhinged.
Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom.
What about his dresser?
It was disgusting.
His nightstand.
And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff.
What he leaves out is that so much of that investigation was curtailed by his own Department of Justice while he was president, his first 4 years. And of course, he used, like in spades, executive privilege to keep people from testifying at any point when investigations were happening. Besides, don't tell me that my eyes didn't see what I actually saw. We're not stupid. Your base may be, your Republican colleagues may be, but not the rest of us.
All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy.
Which is absolute bullshit. It's the past support that Ukraine has gotten from the United States the 4 years prior that still has Zelensky not only in office, but presiding over a country that still exists. And what Donald Trump seeks to negotiate is a capitulation of assets and resources and portions of that country to no longer exist under the flag of Ukraine. Donald Trump wants to negotiate a surrender for Ukraine. And Zelensky isn't having it. And as leader of his country, that's his prerogative. It's going to do it for today's Ron Show. Show notes, as always, at ronshowatl.com. I'm sure I'll have plenty more to talk about tomorrow other than this, right? Like, I really want to dive into the homeless problem in Atlanta and how state Republicans are trying to that up. Anyway, 9 a.m., 5 p.m., America One Radio, 11 p.m., Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Take care.